You can write a book even if you don't feel like a writer. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through 3 reasons to write a book, even if you don't feel like a writer, even if you don't feel qualified to write a book. So reason number 1 is based on the idea that what you've been through isn't wasted when you look back on how far you've come. We call this the gain, looking back on the gain, looking back on how far you've come, and reflecting on the progress that you've made, that God has been doing something in your life. He's been faithful to complete the work that he began. And just by writing a book, it causes you to reflect on his goodness and his grace and how far you've come. And even if nobody reads that book, even if it's only you who actually read that book, I do think you still complete it, okay? But even if the idea is like, well, but nobody's gonna read my book, even if nobody else reads your book, the fact that you wrote it and reflected on your story still has value. It has the value of reflection, because when you reflect on your story, you see how far you've come. And this is specifically for you if you feel a little behind, if you feel like it's too late, if you feel like I haven't really grown, I'm not as qualified as somebody else, I'm not as good of a writer as somebody else. The reflection piece still stands, which is looking back on how far you've come will encourage you as you move forward. So the first reason to write a book, even if you don't feel qualified, is for the value of reflection. Reason number 2 to write a book, if you don't feel qualified, if you don't feel like you're a good enough writer, or somebody else has already said the thing that I want to say. Reason number 2 to write the book anyway is contribution. Contribution. There's so much value in adding your perspective to your industry, to the conversation. There's a conversation happening right now about you, about a problem that you face, like about something you've lived, and your voice is not in that conversation. But what if it were? What if it were? What if people could read your perspective? I specifically am speaking to Christian writers right now. Okay, there's so many topics right now that are just flavorless. There's no salt, and they're dark. There's no light. And we as Christians are called to be salt and light. So what if you could contribute your salt and your light, ultimately the light of Christ, the seasoning of the Word of God, into that conversation? So let's take, for example, let's say that you're a school teacher. You've been a school, one of our authors in Hope Books is a school teacher. She retired. She was a school teacher for 33 years. And she's thinking, why would any school teachers want to listen to me? Books have already been written for school teachers. I don't really have anything to say. And I challenged her on it, and I said, what do you know now that you wish you knew your third year of teaching? If you could go back 30 years and give yourself a love letter and say, now that I've been doing this for 33 years, here's what I wish I would have known 30 years ago in my third year of teaching. She's like, oh, I'd write about this, I'd write about this, I'd write about this. I'm like, that's it right there. That's it. You could give the gift of contribution. You could take the hard story that you've lived through, the lessons that you have taken a decade to learn, and share them with a reader who could apply them the first day, a decade in a day. And that really is, I believe, part of what it means to love your neighbor as yourself. It's to say, I have learned some really hard lessons, and I want to help you skip the learning curve. I want to help you avoid some of the pain that I've experienced. So here it is. Here's my gift to you. It might not be the most eloquent book. It might not be the flowery language. It might not be perfectly edited, but you know what? It's hard-fought wisdom, and hard-fought wisdom is invaluable, especially if you're the only one saying it. If you're the only one saying it. There's a classic movie called Jerry Maguire. You may or may not have seen it, but basically the idea is there's this industry, and it's all about me and more. And then the Tom Cruise character says, there's got to be a better way. What if we had less clients and made less money? And people are like, but he's crazy. He ends up getting fired because of this manifesto he writes. And he calls it The Things We Think But Do Not Say. And I actually think that's one of the most powerful books that you could write, is the things that we all think and do not say. In the world of education, teachers feel a certain way. They think a certain thing, and yet nobody says it. Why? Because they don't want to get fired, because they don't want to rock the boat, because they want to protect their retirement. What are the things that we think but do not say? That could be your contribution, especially after you've retired. If you've finished a season, what a gift, what a kindness to look back and to say, before I leave the workplace. A mentor of mine is talking about how he's retiring after 26 years at this company. And what I would say to him is, what if you wrote as a gift to all the people still at the company, here are 26 lessons I learned in 26 years. Here are 26 hard-fought lessons, and some of them are gonna crack some eggs. To make an omelet, you gotta crack some eggs. Some of them are gonna kill some sacred cows. Some of the things that he learned are not gonna be popular things to say, but what a gift to say those things, especially if you're out on your way out the door anyway. Might as well, and that's your contribution. Because if one person at his company reads that book, and one of those things helps that person be able to have a better perspective, a more biblical mindset. One of those things that he writes helps that person spend more time with their kids. One of those things that he writes helps that person get the promotion where they wouldn't have got the promotion because they didn't know how to play the corporate game. Like, if one of the things that he writes helps that person skip a decade of trouble with just a day of reading, isn't that worth it? That's the contribution. I think we all have the call to contribution. We want to leave this place better than we found it. We want to make a difference. We want to share our voice. And yet we're so afraid to, because we don't feel qualified, or we don't feel like what we have to say is valuable enough. But if you could do it through this framework, looking back on what I've learned, how can I leave a love letter to the person that's coming up behind me and help them skip the line. This is actually what presidents do, which I think is really interesting, because a lot of times it's opposing political parties, and still the tradition is when you leave the office of presidency, you leave a note, you leave a letter in the Resolute desk for the next president to say, these are some things that I've learned, and so hopefully these things can help you as well. So that's contribution. The second reason for you to write your book, especially if you don't feel qualified. And the third reason to write your book if you don't feel qualified is this is especially for you if you're going through a transition. So you've gone through a divorce, you've gone through a retirement, you've moved, you changed careers, your kids are out of the house and now you're an empty nester, and you've gone through a transition. It's time to get oriented. What is true north? What is the direction I'm going in? What's the destination I'm headed towards? I need to get oriented. Orientation means, like, where is the direction where I'm going? Writing a book reorients you, because when you start writing a book, you go, I want people to read the book. I kind of want to talk to people about the book. I would love the idea of speaking at a conference about the book. I love the idea. Oh my goodness, can you imagine if I was on a podcast to talk about the book? Whoa, what if somebody starts following me on social media about my book? What if people leave ratings and reviews about my book? What if people purchase the book and it becomes a bestseller? That is an orientation. That's a directional goal of contribution. And it gives you clarity to say, in this next season of my life, what's my thing? I'm an author. So what does it look like to be an author? We got to write the book first. So you write the book. This happens in our Hope Books coaching program. Most of our authors don't want to call themselves authors, and they struggle with marketing. And so what I simply say is, you don't have to launch your book. Let's publish your book, and then we'll launch your book. Get your book in your hands first, and then you're gonna really feel ready to reorient, to actually step into the calling of contribution, of holding that book in your hands and going, I gotta do something with this. I gotta get this into people's hands. And so that actually means becoming a leader. The reorientation from I'm writing for me, reflection, I'm writing for them, contribution, to I am leading, sharing my perspective. I am hopefully leading people to freedom. People right now are in a prison. They are struggling with life. They have experienced letdowns. They are isolated. They've had failures, or they've experienced an ending, and you have experienced those too. You've had life happen to you. You've been let down, you felt isolated, you've had a failure, you've gone through an ending. And yet, what a gift to take those life lessons and to share hope. helpful, optimistic, personal equipping for you to take that story, the 26 years here, the 33 years there, the 10 years here, the 7 things I learned about this, the 1 mindset shift that changed my marriage. Like, the thing that you have been through is not wasted when you share it with somebody else. If only I knew, I would have gone through this so much easier. And that's your gift. And by sharing that gift of contribution, you have a reorientation, which is, who else needs this message and how can I get in front of them? And who do I need to be in order to be invited on that stage? Who do I need to become in order for that famousy person to invite me on their podcast? What kind of content do I need to create? How do I need to see website, social media, email marketing, advertising, speaking? How do I need to see these skills in a way that are actually part of my quiver of arrows, my backpack of equipment? I need to grow. I need to grow in my speaking and grow in my podcasting and grow in my social media and grow in my email marketing. And that right there, my friends, that is reorientation. Realizing that I'm no longer working for a paycheck. I'm now working for legacy, and learning the rules of being a messenger, learning the rhythm of being an expert leader. You might say, I'm not an expert leader. Well, yeah, you wrote a book. You're literally the authority, the authority on that topic. You've contributed your perspective to the conversation, and people say, come join us. We want to hear from you. We want you to be on a panel at this conference. We want you to share your story on our podcast. We want you to train our team. And you're like, reoriented. I need to really build the brand and be a leader. And that's the third reason to write a book, is because until you have that book in your hand, it just feels a little bit like I'm an imposter. I did a coaching with one of our authors the other day, and this person came into our office, and I brought in a couple of our team members. We sat around the little living room that we have there in the office with this author, and we talked to him or her about this sort of hesitancy to step into the calling of contribution. And the heart is there. This author had such a heart of service, and yet this failure to launch, this nervousness to really go for it. And I know that the solution, or a solution, but the solution that I would propose, that I would recommend, the solution to overcoming fear of putting yourself out there on social media and growing your email list and starting to speak at conferences, the solution is to have a book. Because when you hold that book in your hands, you realize that this book isn't for me, it's for it's for somebody else. And I need to figure out how to get it in front of her. And then you can learn the rhythms, the methods that other authors have followed, which is social media, email, podcasting, speaking, the things that we talk about. That marketing comes after you understand that I need to market. Marketing comes after you understand that I have a product that helps people. When you have a solution that helps people, you got to figure out how to get it in their hands. And that's really what marketing is. And that's the reorientation. Falling in love with sales and falling in love with marketing isn't for money and isn't for self-aggrandizement. It's for service to other people. And that's the reorientation. I love when an author reorients themselves, and instead of blame, it's somebody else's fault that the book's not selling, shame, oh, I don't have what it takes, the book's not selling, they play the game and they start to figure out how to get on podcast 1, then podcast 2, then podcast 11, then podcast 31, because they keep showing up and keep doing the work. I see them get invited to speak, and then they're on stage. I see them start to grow their email list. I love this happen a few times. I love when I see they're advertising. I'm like, you're now advertising? You are completely reoriented. And now you're really making a go of this being a leader thing, because we have such a short time. So those are 3 reasons for you to actually write your book, even if you don't feel qualified. Number 1, reflection. Looking back on how far you've come and realizing God's faithfulness in your life will propel you forward. So looking back is important. Number 2, the call to contribution. Contributing your story, your message to your industry, to your former colleagues, to say, here's some things I learned as I retire. Here's some things I learned that can help you. You don't have to be a writer to do that. You don't have to be famous to do that. You just have to be faithful to look at your reflection and share some of your reflection. And finally, number 3, the reorientation, going, whoa, for the limited time I have left, which is only 10, 20, 30 years, I don't have that much time left. I'm about to get going, leading these people to freedom, because there are people in bondage. There are people that are stuck and struggling, harassed and helpless, overwhelmed, frustrated, discouraged, despondent. And you can say, I've been there. I've been let down. I've been isolated. I've had failures. I've had endings. And yet I'm still here. And you can too. Read my book. Let's go. Let's figure it out together. Well, how are they going to read? How are they going to know unless you go? How are they going to hear unless you get near? It's not going to work until you work it. So reorienting yourself to realize that you're actually a leader and not just an author. I hope this encourages you. 3 reasons to write your book. You can do this, but you got to get started today. I would love to have a conversation with you. You can talk to me or one of our team members, hopebooks.com/call. We'd love to talk with you about your idea, how to help you get started, because you have a story to share. You have a message to share and an audience to serve, and you can do this. hopebooks.com/call. Thanks for watching. Take your next step on the writing path.